Oh, and on that little note, we're live today on the Metal Lab. And we actually have 3 faces this week. Guys, it's been a little while since we've had more than 2, so I can be a little less busy on the camera. But I'm joined this week by Mr. Tom Kerr.
Hello, everyone. I'm just going to finish assembling this crate.
The busy Mr. Tom Kerr. And Jay.
Hi, everyone.
All right. Now we're gonna skip our week in review because Jay had a little bit more excitement based on some of the things we're going to be talking about. So we're going to get straight into the news because, oh my gosh, did WizKids create news this week?
You bet.
Oh boy. It's like last week I felt like I had nothing to talk about, and now this week I have everything to talk about.
Hey, first things first, though, you want to mention our poll or whatever, however we're doing it?
Yes, absolutely. If you're watching live right now in the chat, related to some of the things that we're talking about, Jay's running a sealed event for his Dormammu tournament. Jay, give us the details on that very quickly.
I'm not running it, but it's
okay.
2-pack sealed. And you can pick any 2 modern sets. I'm assuming they have everything, but yeah, you pick 2 different boosters of any modern sets, of 5-figure boosters.
Can you choose the same set for both your boosters?
Yeah.
So you can mix and match or do 2.
You can mix and match. You can do 2 of the same as long as it's modern 5-figure.
Okay, so the question we pose to you, our fans, if you're watching live, and heck, even if you're watching the archives, throw your ideas in the comments. What 2 packs would you choose if you could choose any 2 packs of modern sets? So think about that. If you're in the chat live, let's hear your ideas on it. And we'll try. I threw an idea, or I threw a reminder in the chat, and I hope it archives properly so you don't miss it there. But on that note, let's get to the news, guys. Some figures have been previewed by Heroclix. Now, we know Scott Porter this week ran his unboxing, which was great news for us because we were able to get our unboxing out this weekend too. So you got a reaction video, our initial opening on the Saturday, and on Sunday you can check out my review of the individual figures on the set. But WizKids has also graced us with a little bit more on their side. So let's take our first look at a figure here. We have Colonel Wayne. Wow, is that me? Is that flashing on you guys too?
It is flashing on us too.
Okay, hold on a second. I just got a brand new graphics card, so it could be the loose connection I have on it right now. So we're going to try it this way. Apologize for that, folks, if you're watching live. And okay, let's try this one more time here. That's better. All right. We have Colonel Wayne. Now, Colonel Wayne, let me zoom in a little bit because this is a little bit zoomed out there. Colonel Wayne has the Batman family past and soldier keywords, real name Bruce Wayne, and he has a trait that's very common in all the Justice Riders, and if you're an Overwatch fan, you're going to love this when it's high noon. If Colonel Wayne is the last character with this trait to hit an opposing character with a range attack until your next turn, if the hit character makes a range attack, Colonel Wayne must be one of its targets. The special movement power, Colonel Wayne can use running shot and ignore hindering and characters for the purposes of movement. He also has a special attack power, which he has on his middle 2 clicks. Find my contact agent, Redbird. Once per game, give Colonel Wayne a free action and place adjacent a Redbird bystander. Redbird bystander has 6 movement with hypersonic, 11 attack with Blaze Claw's Fangs, 17 defense with combat reflexes, and 2 damage with exploit weakness. He's a 75-point dial, 5 range. He starts with his special movement on his first 4 clicks, goes to some side step towards the end. Batman team ability, shape change, leadership, perplex. Tom, welcome back. What do you think of Colonel Wayne?
Well, I like him. I automatically like the fact that he's got, first of all, the high noon trait's really good. And so for, I think, every one of them, it's a neat trait to have. And frankly, 7 clicks for 75 points is already off to a good start because he's got a fairly low cost per click. Helps to make up for the fact that with no upfront reduction, then, that first hit's going to hurt. I am a little bit nonplussed about the fact that he doesn't start with that attack power. The odds of blasting past that attack power are real good. So, there's a pretty good chance Redbird won't be seen. Also, there's a good chance that leadership won't be to its full effect. But maybe you'll get lucky. I mean, like it could go either way. I do like the upfront combination of ESD and shape change. It kind of forced them to get in close, which is a bit of control for you and your team. And, he rounds out okay. He's not, I don't really get really excited about him. I would get more excited if I could rely on Redbird. But in absence of that, I mean, between Batman Ally and ESD, you're pretty much going to have to stand next to this guy regardless. And he can ignore characters when he moves to use running shot. So it'll be hard to lock him down. he's a good piece. I don't think that I'm super excited about him. Soldier keyword's great, but he's decent.
All right, Jay, your thoughts?
A bit torn. I don't know if he's necessarily competitive. I do like what I see. The combination of stealth and high noon is just so annoying, as is his ability to, like Tom said, get around with that improved movement. While I don't like how the Redbird power is positioned on the dial, I get why they did that, so we wouldn't just have another Zuko Nightwing situation competitively where you get this Pog for a 5-point investment. And while I also don't normally like leadership mid-dial, I think it works well with this guy because, at least with new rules, where you don't automatically get the extra action. So suppose you have a 3-character team, you get hit to click 3, you have leadership now, so you automatically get the extra action for the new Pog. So I think that was designed well. I don't know if he's quite competitive as an ID card or as a main force character, but I feel like he does some cool stuff. Maybe we could see some of him.
This is a good taste of flavor, in my opinion. I like the way he flavors out with the. I loved all the Justice Riders as cowboys, but I'm not going to bring these guys to super competitive tournaments very quickly. And Jay, I do like the observation you made where leadership comes, and so does an extra character because you need that leadership now. And I don't think the new rules were made in conjunction with this character, but accidental good thing is accidental. That's fine. All right. So next up, guy who plays my instrument, the drummer. Drummer is planetary, detective, and scientist. Keywords. Real name, unknown. Doesn't matter. He's the drummer. He's got a trait, reading the information flows. Once per turn, when an opposing character within range and line of fire would use one of Outwit, Perplex, or Probability Control during their turn, you may choose that instead. The opposing character can't use that power that turn. He's got a special damage power in his first 2 clicks. Planetary, Archaeologist of the Impossible. Once per turn, the drummer can use either Outwit or Perplex. He's got a sidestep across the board, energy shield across the board, and he ends with, so he's got the first 2 clicks with the Outwit Perplex power, last 2 clicks with Perplex, and he's got a 10 range. Jay, what do you think of the drummer?
That trait is going to mean he'll see some level of competitive play, especially with new Outwit. Especially with that 10 range, which also goes well with his own Outwit or Perplex. I wish that Planetary was a competitive keyword because it's the only way to get him his own probability control to use with that 10 range to fully maximize it. But as is, he's a decent little package. And although he's kind of defensively weak, the energy shield and the range focus for his dial should help keep him safe. So I think he will see some competitive play.
All right, Tom?
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. I don't have a lot to add. It doesn't excite me very much, but 10 range Outwit or Perplex and 10 range shutting things off is going to be real good, especially under the new rules. The one thing I particularly like about him, just a nice little piece of design, is the fact that they've said, once per turn when they would use that power, they instead can't. As opposed to just saying you can't use the power and then you basically force your opponent to get something out of the way, and then you can either let it happen or not. But rather than being sort of like redundant to his Outwit, where you're just taking away a power and then they decide not to use it, instead you wait till they would use the power, and then you say no. So that's kind of cool. Although when you're playing against it, you might also be able to kind of play with that a little bit. If you might choose to do your free actions in a different order, then you're kind of forcing the drummer guy to a decision. That kind of thing is just kind of fun. It could be fun to play, is what I'm getting at.
I think one of the important parts worth noting, too, is the timing on stealth changed many years back, and a lot of people don't recognize that. Stealth only matters on your opponent's turns. So if it's your active turn, you're trying to Outwit, Perplex, or Probability Control, regardless of your stealth, it's not going to matter. So, and that 10 range is going to be able to use that almost every time. So it's a great power. It's got a lot of potential, I do agree. And like Tom said, you're going to have to think about the order of things, and then you're also going to have to think of the importance of things. So, yeah, the drummer is definitely going to be one of those little extras that finds his way, especially with the expected relevance of Outwit in the future. He's probably going to see himself on a lot of teams. All right, and this is the one that makes me sweat every time we talk about it. And this is not a preview, but rather a preview of what could be coming. And that is the watch list. Watchlist is a quarterly thing that they do where they take a look at figures and talk to the community and see what's up and what's going on. For the last couple of quarters, we haven't had any figures in the watch list and that's a good sign. It's a healthy sign. But we do have 4 figures on our new Q3 2017 watch list. Those figures are Jakeem Thunder, the Goblin King, the Pim Pocket Tank, and Felix Faust. Now, this doesn't mean they're immediately being errated. This also doesn't mean they're immediately being banned. What this means is WizKids is going to the wire, probably going to talk to their testers, talk to the players in general, listen to the general community, and see what everybody thinks about these figures and what could possibly be changed or what the problems are with these characters. So I'm going to show my face up for this one because we get to see my reactions now, and we've said it. We're going to go on it. And I do want the entire crew's ideas, opinions, etc., as far as what could or what you think should occur with these characters. Tom, you can go ahead and take the lead on this one.
So do you want to go figure by figure maybe rather than have us all talk for a long time?
We could go figure by figure, but the first 2 figures I have the very similar opinion on, so go ahead.
Fair. I mean, I kind of agree with you. Here's the thing with Jakeem Thunder and Goblin King, for that matter, in my opinion. It's hard to identify whether there's necessarily a problem with them. Depends on how you define problem to me. They seem like very, very good figures. Nothing that they're doing seems just obscenely cheap. There doesn't seem to be anything with them that really hurts the spirit of the game. I mean, we talked about that with Faust a lot. We talked about how it kind of is bad for the spirit of the game. And there's nothing that they do that opens up some kind of game-breaking strategy, like we got with the old Heroes for Hire ATA and Ghost Rider and the Bat Belt. That was a game-breaking thing. Faust was a bit of a game-breaking thing, and he was bad for the spirit and feel of the game. Spiral, she kind of made the map irrelevant. So that was a bit, I wouldn't say call it game-breaking, but it certainly was against the spirit of the game. I don't think that anything Goblin King or Jakeem are doing is against the spirit of the game, personally. I think that they are very interesting pieces. There's some choice involved. In the case of Jakeem, there's some limitations involved. In the case of Goblin King, it's just a fair number of points for the number of clicks of life you're getting. So there's something to be said for the fact that there's a more balance there than there might otherwise be. So I don't think they deserve to be on the watch list because they're broken or because they're against the spirit of the game. But if you look at the results from Worlds, you look at the results from Nationals, you look at the results from a lot of the Rocks, Jakeem is everywhere, and since he was released, Goblin King is everywhere too, and they're just dominating. And when you've got a point where any couple of characters are as dominant as those 2 are, I think that maybe this is shifting the focus of the watch list a little bit from not just things that break the game or things that make the game a really unpleasant experience, but things that are just overly dominant within the game that dissuade you from wanting to play anything else because it just works better to go with these things that work this way. And again, you look at Worlds and Nationals, it's not like people weren't playing other things. It's not like there weren't lots of people doing other combinations, other teams, other attempts to fight against this. But what was getting through was Jakeem and Faust and Tank and Goblin King and comparatively few other things. So with that in mind, I do think they need to be addressed. I like the spirit of what they're saying. They're not saying these characters are broken. They're saying these characters are too pervasive. They're leading to a bit of a thin and uninteresting metagame. And we would like to be able to address that. That's how I take their inclusion on the watch list. So I do think something should be done about them. I can't say that I have any really good ideas. Well, the only idea that I came up with, which I think is overly complex, but it's the only thing I could think of, was a thing that says, because both of them say that you can choose up to 2 powers.
Yep.
And then I was thinking you could maybe add a rider to it that says, at the end of the turn, if this character chose 2 powers and did not take a non-free action this turn, give them an action token. So it basically forces you to only take 1 power unless you're doing something. That was kind of the only thing I could think of to maybe make them a little bit more balanced. They'd still be super good, and I've always been a big fan of the idea the watch list shouldn't just cut the nuts off of the piece that you're talking about. Like, if they're good, by all means, keep them good. But if they're too good, maybe pull them back a little. That's the only thing I could think of. What do you think?
All right. Jake.
I guess following up on what you said, the whole Jakeem being on the watch list reminds me of when Brother Voodoo was, where they basically said he's a prime, and if we do anything to him, it'll just ruin the figure. Like, there was nothing they could do to change that figure that then just take out all of the teeth and make it completely useless. Same with Jakeem. Like, he's already 140 points. He's your primary attacker, half your build. If you do anything to what's already there with all the restrictions he has, it's a ruined figure. And that's an SR Prime that people have had to get now. So if you ruin that level of figure, I don't think that's good for PR or just the game in general. Goblin King, I think, is different, especially because part of why Jakeem is more balanced is the upcoming Outwit change, which doesn't affect Goblin King at all. In addition to the fact that the way he works, I was just watching Cham Chat, and Howard said it very well, where he said that Goblin King essentially chooses 4 powers per turn. Where, let's say you pick Hypersonic Super Strength one turn, do that, next turn you get to pick defense powers, and you've essentially gotten your pick of 4. Which is not nearly as balanced as having to pick pick at the beginning of the turn.
Yeah, just to clarify, what Jay's saying is that on the subsequent turn, you could hypersonic, super strength, or whatever again, then pick defense powers, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the other thing with Goblin King is that in addition to having the big point line, which I don't think is really competitive, and the primary attacker one, you also have the 75-point one. Which, just compare that to any other 75-point investment, and there's no comparison. Compare him to the Nico Minoru in the rare slot, who also picks 2 powers.
Yes, it's a fairly good comparison.
She has nothing on the dial besides willpower, has way more restrictions on her picking powers, and is just not nearly as good.
But she's a click of life longer.
Oh, yeah. It makes all the difference. I think that Goblin King does need a bit of a change. Like, he has to pick at the beginning of the turn. I think we're pretty much fine. I don't think that he needs anything beyond that.
All right.
And that's basically, yeah.
You guys ready for the most undiplomatic thing you're ever going to hear me say? It's not Goblin King and Jakeem is the problem. It is everything else around them. And I want to be specific here with Joker's Wild as a set. Jakeem Thunder shows up in that set. Other than Jakeem Thunder, do you know how many other characters over 100 points? 3. Now think about that for a second. I was all for WizKids kind of dropping the points, making characters on the side good. But at the same time, dropping the game to a certain degree and having more on the field. Awesome. Unfortunately, when you maintain design that has characters that work basically in the past and present in this way, you've now got to up the ante on that. It's really hard in the sense where, oh my gosh, Goblin King and Jakeem Thunder were dominating, put them on the watch list. No. Start designing better. Start designing an environment that allows them to be beaten. Right now as well, how much Pulse Wave do we have in the current environment? We have next to none, except in Jakeem Thunder and Goblin King. Pulse Wave, I used to hate the power, but I still hate the power, but nobody likes getting Pulse Wave. But at the same time, Pulse Wave is an answer to something like Jakeem Thunder and the Goblin King, right? I personally don't think Jakeem Thunder and the Goblin King are the problem. It's the overall design of the game has allowed them to be dominant. And that's where the problem in these two figures lies, is they're dominant because of a number of factors. And one of the factors is that they dominated in the environment that's the smallest version of the modern we're going to see, right? Like until just before Worlds next year, this is the least number of figures we're going to have in this modern age. Then we go into, the end of that. Are we going to have figures that could possibly help? Well, I know we have the uncommon Green Lantern that's going to have some Pulse Wave. I hear rumors out there that there is a figure on the level of Green Goblin. So is it possible that we need more of these figures? Who knows? But what I'm saying is I don't think those figures are problematic in their design. I think the rest of the game has been problematic in its design because of the curve back. But they also let these two things slip through, like, oh my gosh, we've been curving back everything. Why do we make these?
Right, but isn't that the point, though? Like, they can change their design philosophy moving forward, but if they need to address something right now, all they can really do is address the figures as they are. Because I agree with you. There's nothing wrong with them, except that they're too good.
And it's I go back to what I was saying is they've snipped the power. Like, you could give me 30, 40, 50-point characters with Pulse Wave, and I'd be saying pack more of those in your ID cards.
Well, you've got a few of them. Like, you've got Sunfire, you've got Thor, who's what, 105. You've got that Green Lanterns coming out. I mean, like, you've got a few.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you. It's too few.
Yeah.
But why would I ever choose them instead of just choosing? If I need Pulse Wave, why don't you just take Goblin King? He's a better Pulse Waver than any of them.
And I'm not going to disagree with that. But I don't think these figures need to be watch listed or to be changed in any way, shape, or form. I think WizKids has to stop designing figures like this in the first place and has to suck it up again, because at this point, it's much like the Brother Voodoo. The figures themselves, yeah, they're good, but much like, we say Nick Fury is good, these can be beaten, but we need the figures and the tools to do so. Now, we can't give up immediately because this is the smallest modern. Do these need to be addressed right now? Well, maybe not, because they're what exists in Elseworlds that I haven't seen yet. Right now, we saw that I've seen some of the figures from the Elseworld set, and I can definitely account for the uncommon Green Lantern being out there. But who knows what else?
Well, and as Jay points out, the new Outwit will have an effect on Jakeem, at least.
Right.
So there's something to be said for that.
Yes. So I feel like we don't need to touch those. We just need to look forward and say, because this is not a case of characters being broken and, like you said, breaking the spirit of the game. You just made characters that are really good, and we're going to use them. Right? Yep. But and I have to get into my last point on this is they're only strong because you're seeing them with pilots who deserve to be or are going to be good with them, because both of those characters have player agency. You do have to select the correct powers. You do have to make the correct choices. When a good player has them in their hands, they're going to make the right choices. Yeah. So, I've done my rant.
And rant. Hashtag rant.
Yep. If I had to change something, when Goblin King chooses new powers, can't choose anything he just played. Green and Jakeem Thunder, just don't touch him because he's got such limitations already. Right. So there's a ton of limitations, and future sight, and everybody agrees with this. In the future, the new Outwit will be effective against him.
In the future.
In the future, we say. All right, I'm done. Let's talk the next.
I guess part. I want to just throw in. Sorry, I just want to throw in one more thing I forgot. Sure. So the first resource was the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yes.
And Goblin King does his shtick because he has an Infinity Gauntlet. What if we said that he can't use resources and even equipment because he already has a resource?
Do you think that was the only person I saw put anything on him was Howard, and that was of all things, the symbiote? I don't think that's the problem. That's addressing a non-problem, kind of like what happened with the bystander token thing on a figure we're going to be talking about next.
Yes, but also, who knows, because we have 24 equipment objects in Thor, so we really don't know. I think it just could be good for flavor, if anything.
Good for flavor, I agree, balancing. But if they're worried about balance, I don't know that would really address it. It's hard to say. It would go some distance. I just don't know if it would go far enough.
All right.
Depends on where they want to go.
The winning team had equipment on it, so there you go.
Yeah, hey, you know what else the winning team and just about every other team at Worlds had on it? I didn't think a team that didn't have this on there. I want to point this out. And that is the Pim Pocket Tank.
Who at this point would play a competitive team with the Pim Pocket Tank? I think that it was Scott Crampton who basically said, we're entering the era of the 292-point modern. He may not have used those exact words, but that was his point, that basically every team from this point forward is a 292-point team because there's no point building without a tank.
Theme or not.
Yeah. Even the one very minor thing that maybe would have dissuaded somebody is even gone.
All right. I'm going to let Jay take the lead on this one, Jay. The Pim Pocket Tank is there. We all know it's something like this. this is a saturation level I haven't seen ever. Like, we can say, oh my gosh, there's so much Jakeem and Goblin King. There were teams without both, without either. One even made the top 16 using Dreadpool. Right?
Yes. This is the most saturation. This is the most saturation I've seen since Mjolnir, and that cost 0 points.
Yeah. This is, I like, if you played without a Pimp Pocket Tank on your team, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We assumed you didn't take it seriously.
Tell me who you are, because I want to know who you are. At Worlds, sorry. If you're at Worlds or at U.S. Nationals and didn't have did Judson Cedars? I think he was the only one I might know of that didn't have one.
Did he not?
I don't remember. I'm old. So anyway, I've talked at length. It's saturating. Jay, what do we do with the tank?
I guess there's just so many problems with the thing. I think it was Adam Friedman who put it very well. Just the tank does multiple things, and any one of those things is just so worth the points, if not more. Like, if I told you there was a game effect that said you could just reposition your opponent's whole team, like, how much would you cost that at? Really? Like, that's never been a game element before. That's kind of the problem now with special powers. Like, how do you cost some of these powers that are not just standard powers? That's already so good. If you had a game effect that said, oh, by the way, you make an attack, you get +2 penetrating damage dealt.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? How is that a game effect that you get to do? In addition to that, it's 8 points, and it doesn't break theme. And the only net is that you get a -1 attack. Okay, I guess, yeah, you get the -1 attack. They can score the 50 points. But if you get more than 50 points with it, you're ahead. So just don't play it where you're going to not get 50 points worth out of it and then lose the game because of that. It's just that the way you attack with it, I know that there's not necessarily a place for real-world logic in the game, but just the way that it combines with attacks is just too strong. Like, are you telling me that if Deadshot is shooting somebody, he's going to take his awesome bullet and then duct tape the Pim tank onto it, and then you hit with the bullet, and then the Pim tank blows up? What? And then if you're doing it in close combat, like, you're punching somebody in the face, and then the Pim tank is expanding right next to you, doesn't hurt you and hurts them. It's way too much. I think the way you throw the Pim tank should be closer to have Ultralights work now, where you chuck it a certain number of squares as its own attack, its own damage. It doesn't stack onto the actual attack. For close, not as sure. I don't even necessarily know if I would want it to work in close. But or you could just not make it penetrating. But just even without that, you can still damage all the support pieces now and get all that repositioning goodness just for 8 points. It doesn't even break your theme. And even if they snipe your Pim tank, it's a 19 at range, okay, and you only lost 8 points. They wasted an attack on your 8-point investment. Okay. So there's so many possible ways you could take it, and I think it definitely needs to be reviewed.
All right, Tom?
Jay, you did a great job. The only thing that makes me wonder about the Pim tank is that when I look at it, I really do look at it as a 50-point investment as opposed to an 8-point investment. By which I mean, if you use it, the tank pops out, and the tank's so easy to kill that you're almost certainly giving your opponent 50 points. Now, the real question being that it can do more than that. Laughing at the comment section. Yeah, I was just
steaming a lap. We have a little chat in our window here, and I just reminded Tom that his lap is steaming because he's eating dinner while
I was giving my dinner while we were here. Anyway, the thing about it to me is that something needs to be done. I can immediately tell you what I don't think should be done, which is addressing the whole, single-click figures are treated as bystanders, and so they don't break theme. While I do think that that's a dumb rule, frankly, and I wish that rule would go away, that's not going to fix the pocket tank. If anything, that's going to take the few people who are willing to play theme and just completely take away any desire they might have to do it. I think that the Pocket Tank is so good that it's worth breaking theme for in the first place. So why would you bother with it? And I like theme, so I don't think that's going to solve the problem. I do think that rule should be addressed, but I don't think that will solve the watch list, or rather solve the Pim Tank. The changes I would make to the Pim Tank are I would make its penetrating damage into regular damage, and I would say when a character makes an attack against an opposing character within their printed range value or within their range value, I would basically prevent the Faust Yellow Power Blast or the Supreme Intelligence across the map blast, etc. So at least it pulls it back a little bit and see if that takes. I frankly still don't think that's enough, but at least when you're doing that, you're not dealing the penetrating damage and you're eliminating that really cheap across the map thing that is so overpowered at the moment. And then you have to at least weigh your options a little bit about whether or not you want to essentially hand 50 points over to your opponent if you're not guaranteed that that damage is going to go through against people who have the ability to reduce it and or ignore it. I still don't think it's enough. I mean, if it was up to me, I guess that I might make it even more limited, but I don't know what else I can do with it. It puts me in a bit of a rock and a hard place. It's so cheap for so much that I almost think that repositioning is all you actually need it to do. I don't know if it should do damage at all, but I don't have any better ideas. Kind of stumped on this one. What do you think?
Well, in this case, I want to be level-headed and say it still needs to be good, but I don't want it to be, oh my god, good, right? So, like, I think Jay actually mentioned it, and I kind of zoned out because I was distracted by some things here and watching the chat, is that the fact that it does your damage in addition to what it does already is the problem, the big problem, if you ask me. I feel that they need to give it a choice. You either do the tank damage or do your initial damage. So, you know, you don't get the minus, if you don't take the -1 attack, you're just going to be doing your normal damage. Or if you do take the -1 attack, you're dropping a tank on somebody, but that's it, because you're kind of chucking a keychain at somebody. Like Jay said, it doesn't, the image of me duct taping it to my bullet or my energy beam, I'm not seeing it. You know what I mean? It just cosmic spider shoots energy beam, and there's a tank in there. Come on, right? But if he goes, boom, that's cool, right? So as long as it's strictly the tank damage and you get that dispositioning thing and everything like that, I'm kind of cool with it. It'll still be good, but it's not doing 6 damage to initial targets and stuff like that. Like, that's where it's getting insane, all right? But I do...
Agreed, I like that better.
Yeah.
Go with that.
Yeah, I kind of... That's the one I want them to do, but at the same time, I do agree that the penetrating damage is super strong. So non-penetrating damage would also be good. It still leaves the tank as a counter to the tank, right? So, you know, if I fire a tank at you first, you're losing your tank with non-penetrating damage because it's only got toughness, right? I'm cool with that as well. I do believe it should stay good, but not be as good. And just deal the 2 penetrating damage to the group of targets. That's it. You don't get your initial damage off of it. And find a way to erase all that stuff you put about theme teams with it.
Right.
But that's, you know, if you're going to make it the bystander, somebody talk to somebody. That's what needs to.
I think that's a separate. I think it's a separate thing. I do think it's a dumb thing, but I don't think that
agree.
fixes it.
Yeah, I'm on your page because ultimately, like you said, it was going to get played one way or another. Right? Oh no, I lose my theme. I'm over it. Oh, I still keep my theme. Awesome, I get theme props too. So, and I think that really affected the one team that we know about, and that was Sean Chu's team with the Dread Pool. So he was catching people off guard, left, right, and center with that, man. Nobody knows that dial, and everybody was caught off with it. All right, my God, the broken record begins. This is the second time.
I have to talk about this again. I need a drink.
Hey, look. Hold on a second.
I didn't know I was going to have a drink.
Yeah. I think Chris Stockhouse is going to have to make us a second stamp. This is the stamp for whenever we complain about Faust, and every episode will get that too.
I will immediately go and buy the red ink and just be like, poof, Faust talk.
Everyone looking forward to 2019? I know I am.
Oh, am I 2019? It's 2018.
Well, part of 2018.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, 2019 is gonna be the first full Faustless year, right? Who's up for early retirement?
Wait, I can't. I'm muting myself. Yeah, if you want to speed through my opinion on the matter, early retirement is the only thing I can say. I'm so tired of talking about Faust. He's killing the game. He kills the game for me anyway. To each their own. I just think Faust is the nagging goiter hanging uglily off the neck of this game, and I just want to get rid of it. So I could be more creative if I really put my mind to it. I choose not to be. Please retire Faust. That's my PSA on this.
Yeah. Now I look at Faust, and then I look at this new character they have around the corner, Elijah Snow. And people are like, oh, he's going to be the next Faust. Well, sort of, in the same way that Jakeem Thunder is like the new Super Skrull. You know, he's gonna do very similar things. He's going to upset people in the same way, but in a significantly more limited way. But again, with player agency, which is going to make it super strong. You know, when I take a turn and say, hey, you can't overdrive, right? Now, ladies and gentlemen, imagine a world where I can put an Elijah Snow and a Felix Faust on the same team. Does anybody else see the problem with this? Because I can tell you there's a problem with this. And I apologize if you're looking for some disgusting strategies and you're a blue deck player for Magic the Gathering. I apologize for putting that in your head, and I apologize to the players that you're about to play against.
It probably already was, to be fair.
Yeah. But I do want to go back to some of my previous suggestions. I think I've said this before. Instead of a free action, if it's a lockdown power, make it a power action. At least I get a chance, if you have two action tokens, to not suffer it. You know what I mean? But even then, most of the time, Faust doesn't have any action tokens when he does this, because 90% of the time, Faust isn't doing anything with at all. Right? So the best answer is early retirement. Otherwise, fix the mystical trap and the orange power. Those have got to go. But for the love of criminy, just bite the bullet. Don't call it a banning. Call it early golden age. We're cool with that. Right? Because believe me, if you have the early retirement, there will be parties. I can think of one guy who's not going to be like, oh no, or who's going to actually react like, Faust is gone. Daniel Powell, I'm looking at you. Filthy man. I've been on Clixed off. I'm allowed to smack talk, and I'll tell him this. I've told him this on his show, I think, where he's just the worst type of person. But I also referred to him as a blue player in Magic, and he didn't know what I meant. So you are a blue player in Magic. Magic the Gathering players, go get him.
Well, if he doesn't, let me just say that if he doesn't get Magic the Gathering references, he can't really be the worst kind of person.
That's true. That is true. That is true. I'll take that. I get $200 that I made in 5 minutes selling Magic the Gathering cards this month. So you know what?
Hey Jay. Well, I was going to say, hey Jay, what do you think we should do with Faust?
Okay, so there's kind of a two-pronged part of this. So if we retire, so if we retire him, what happens to the rest of the 2015 cons? Since you suggested, Jason.
Well, I said ban Faust early. I said retire him early.
Okay.
Hearthstone did it.
Okay, just making sure. So you want?
I just take Faust, put him in this bucket of acid over here, and let's never talk about him again.
Okay.
Call it early retirement. You're not using the word banning.
Okay, so we keep the giant talking head, basically.
Yes. What is it doing?
I know, just
giving
sure.
Jakeem Thunder willpower right now.
Yeah. Just making sure. Okay, so assuming that we don't get rid of him, which would just be the cleanest, easiest, and best possible solution, in addition to nerfing the powers that he already has, WizKids needs to clarify and fix how the powers that he has work now. Like, they should say whether or not blue locking, giving you 3-star sidestep works. And if they intended it to be that way, keep it and say that's fine. But if not, get rid of it.
Hard to imagine they meant it to be that.
Huh?
Hard to imagine they meant to be that, but yeah, fair.
Yeah. Does brown give me full square sidestep? Like, we need to. If that's not what it is intended to be, please fix it. I know that new rules fix how orange works, at least with what it was ruled at Worlds, where they ruled that you could use orange at the beginning of the turn before you re-roll. So it basically makes doing the non-free action that other turn completely useless. Because as far as I knew before this, the re-rolling the Faust D20 was at the beginning of the turn in the same way that Smoke Cloud Barrier Disappearing work and how ID card disappearing works.
Right.
I could be wrong on that one.
I think they disappear at the end of, or before the beginning of the turn, at the end of your turn.
In either case,
until your next turn, isn't it?
Yeah, or something like that.
In either case, those happen before you can do stuff. You can't poison with an ID character before they go away. I thought that was how Faust works, but apparently not. That was ruling at Worlds, so that needs to be clarified. Yeah, basically make these power actions that'll be much better. Make Mystical Trap not able to just win. I literally have won a game with Mystical Trap. It has happened. It should not be how it happened, how games work, where you say, so I'm going to, okay, let's say you roll yellow.
I agree. Jay should not win games. That is not how it should be.
Yeah, you shouldn't be able to yellow power, get some points, Mystical Trap, and say GG. That is not how that should work. And just in general, just fix the stupid loopholes with the powers and then nerf the powers that need to. Like, power actions will be good, even though, as has been said, he's just there to Faust. He's not. He has Psychic Blast. He has all that stuff, but he's not there to do that stuff. So, just fix the loopholes and nerf what needs to be nerfed, or just cut your losses and get rid of him. He's already had 2 years at Worlds. There's no official rule that says cons have to have 5 years, right? Last I checked.
So they make the rules as they go. So, you know what?
Yeah. At some point, somewhere, the design team and the rules team have to meet on intent. That's what I'm saying. That's what I think. Is the rules team is doing a pretty good job, but let's read a little bit more into intent as opposed to just strictly what's in front of us. Because obviously what's in front of us is very limited until we get a new rule book. And even then, let's hope we get everything we need out of that, right? Although if we get everything we need, it might look like the Magic the Gathering, extended rules, which super clarify everything. And if you print it out, it's about this big.
Right.
So we might not need that. Or we might use that. Who knows? Because whatever. All right. We've gone at length about this. We've gone gripey. Faust is an old man. A little bit of a trip to the retirement home would be nice for him. But just, fix your loopholes. Limit some things. Just, oh God, do something, man.
I feel like we're the old man. Hey, get that Faust out of my game, gosh darn it.
It's, let us play the game. Elijah Snow is still limited in a certain degree. I get it once each game, but then, sometimes I get it none times with Faust. So we're probably going to look at Elijah Snow in about a month and be like, oh God, here we go. Here we go again. And what's worse is he's got 2 effects, one of which, if you ain't packing a bunch of flyers, good luck with the whole movement thing.
Yeah, it makes me kind of so happy that Danny the Street doesn't exist, because could you imagine that trait plus Danny the Street saying you literally can't move?
Okay.
This is why we can't have nice things. This is why we can't have nice things. All right. It's time to have a little bit of fun, guys.
Hey.
Tom, you brought the debates with you.
I did. So we talked about this a little bit. And I should get my timer ready for it. There's so much to yeah. There's so much to talk about this week, as Jason pointed out earlier. And we were chatting a little bit before the show and thought maybe more for at least one of these items, a more fun way to talk about it would be to go with a Clixed debate. For those who aren't aware, Clixed debate is the idea where 2 people take one either hot side of a hot button issue. And they try to argue for that point. They make an initial argument that outlines their stance. The other person counter-argues with whatever they believe. Each person has 1 minute for their opening argument. We're going to go with 30 seconds for your rebuttal, where you try to refute what your opponent said and add to your own point, and a 15-second closing statement to try to convince the world that you are correct. The idea with Clixed debate isn't necessarily to argue from our own personal perspectives. The idea is to try to make a convincing argument one way or another. And particularly with this Clixed debate, because it's the first time we're going to be talking about the issue, I'm hoping that we can, as much as we like to ham it up and have some fun, I also hope that we have the opportunity to get a few good points out, because I believe that there are points on either side of this particular argument, and that particular argument is the new concept of the rules, or rather for the scoring rules specifically, that were proposed and apparently are going to be run at Gen Con for one of the events. They're going to try out a very different scoring model. It's rather more complicated, but it's one that is grounded in an effort to try to encourage more aggressive play, encourage less turtling, and more trying to get out there, get some serious points, and reward people for scoring rather than reward them just for winning. It's entirely possible under this new set of rules that you could potentially never lose a game and still not win the tournament. How does that work? Well, Jason, would you mind explaining?
How much do I have to you want me to just explain how?
I feel like we should explain what the rules are before we get into the debate part. Yeah.
Okay, so the way it works, ladies and gentlemen, is scoring is changing in a game, as well scoring is changing overall for the tournament. In fact, your score in the game matters for a significantly less gigantic portion of it, but also makes a big gigantic change to how you're doing in a tournament. So very quickly, when you end your game, the scoring usually is how many things have I killed? Okay, I score that many points. The way they're going to try to change it, or they're going to test it out anyway, is how much did I kill, and what is half of what I have left, rounding to the nearest point. So obviously rounding up. So if I have my full team and I have killed your full team, I score 450 points in a 300-point game. And as well, this point score, the score that you get, will then determine where you sit in the tournament bracket, or in the tournament standings, as follows. You get a 3, 2, or 1 point score for the match, regardless of win or loss. So if your score is in the top 33% of the scores in the round, you get 3 tournament points. If you are in the middle 33% of the tournament, you get 2 tournament points. And if you're in the bottom 33% of the scoring at the end of the at the end of the round, you get 1 tournament point. And in addition to these tournament points that I've just mentioned, if you win, you get +1. So you get 4 if you get them in the top 33% and win. 3 if you're in the middle 33% win. 2 if you're in the bottom 33% and win.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in case anyone's not clear on it now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they mentioned in this that this scoring bracket wouldn't just be a Swiss thing. This would be the entire tournament, which means there is no more elimination. Highest points would face highest points, and middle versus middle, lowest versus lowest, kind of the same way it does now. Well, exactly the same way it does now in a manner of speaking. But as I said, it is possible, kind of might be a real trick, but it is possible for you to win every one of your games and still not win the tournament.
Place very low.
Yeah, exactly. You could actually place quite low in the tournament. Contrary to that, you could go all the way through the tournament. You could potentially lose your last 2 games, your last 3 games, and you could win the tournament. It could happen that way. You're depending upon how many rounds we're talking about and stuff, then it could go either way. But the point that I'm driving towards here is that it's not like what happens right now, where gradually you're whittled down to a final couple people, and one person stands up and says, "I won. I am the best Heroclix player in the world, and my name is Howard Brock." Under the new rules, hypothetically, you would all stand up and say, "Well, I wonder who won."
I saw games like that now.
Yeah, fair. Well, within Swiss, that's true. We don't always know who makes the cut to the top 8. Imagine that feeling where you're standing around thinking, "I wonder if I made the cut. I wonder if I made the cut." Only now it's, "I wonder if I won. I wonder if I won." It's a totally different world. And so the way I'd like to structure this is we're going to get our opinions out in the form of a Heroclix debate, a good old-fashioned Heroclix debate. Jay is going to be arguing for the side of, no, these new scoring rules are terrible, or at the very least, this is not a good thing for the game of Heroclix. Jason is going to be arguing in favor of these scoring rules have the opportunity to really clear up some problems within the current game and have some serious potential. Again, I feel the need to stress, these aren't necessarily their own opinions. We all have opinions on the thing. These are the arguments that they're going to try to give to us. And I think that we should start with the conservative one. Jay, I'm going to give you 60 seconds for your opening arguments. Why do you think these new rules will be bad for the game of Heroclix? 60 seconds starting now.
I think overall, the problem with these rules is the more rules you add, the more complicated everything gets. And last I checked, we were supposed to be trying to simplify the game. So this makes the game more complicated for your actual games. It makes things harder for new players. It makes things harder for tournament organizers to a ridiculous extent. And the more rules you have in general, the more room you leave for exploits, as opposed to now where it's very simple. You need to get points to win, as opposed to this current system of, I don't even know how to game this system yet, but somebody's going to figure it out. So you're complicating the game for everybody involved, and you're not necessarily going to fix the problems. You might actually make them worse, or at least not fix them with a complicated system.
All right. 55 seconds, in fact. Well, very good point. This is why are we trying to complicate a game when we've got an X number of entries on the WizKids site for the last several months saying, look at how we're going to simplify this game. Also, here's a scoring system that you'll require, third-year calculus to figure out. However, that doesn't mean that this system isn't without its merit. And to hear about that with 60 seconds on the clock, we're going to hear from Jason Collins now.
Well, I can't tell you how many times I've been through a tournament alongside Mr. Mike Payne, and I hear his score, and he's like, I got 65 points, and I won. I was like, I scored 220, and I still lost. I want to be sitting above Mike Payne in that situation, let me tell you. Specifically Mike Payne. I would love if he was here for that.
throwing some shade.
I can't throwing some shade at Mr. Mike. But at the same time, we got to look at it and say, we want the game to be, apparently WizKids wants the game to be in action. You want to be getting things, because if I'm just surviving and scoring things, I'm actually scoring significantly less than somebody who's killing everything. And it also engages the player's brain, because they've also got to kill but not die. They got to actually try to wipe out the entire team with less mistakes, because losing most of your team while still doing that is actually still going to punish you, put you in the middle kind of thing, right? So it's actually super rewarding the best of the best type of play and putting the best of the best type of players in that very top end and just kind of making them shine and showing that they've done that well in the game.
Good points. Good points all around. And, of course, that's what they're talking about, right? The reason why they want to implement that is exactly what you're saying. Make the spirit of the game about getting in there and roughing it up and fighting it out and seeing who can kind of outplay the other and who can get the most points and so forward. Not just about who can score a few points and most successfully avoid death until the end. However, there is much to be said. Nope, not 30 minutes. That would be a long time. Instead, I
don't want to talk for 30 minutes about this particular topic, let me tell you.
So, Jay, how would you rebut what Jason has to say in 30 seconds or less, starting now?
I'm pretty sure that a system that rewards you for keeping your points while also killing is exactly the kind of system that would work best for turtling, where you maximize defense and kill stuff. Yes, you have to endeavor to kill more stuff than just winning by a couple points, but you're still in the situation where you get rewarded for being all defensive and maybe a little bit of offense.
Yep, that's a good point. Or is it? Let's hear from Jay. Son, let's go.
As far as the complication on points right now, we can already do the math on building a team. What's really the problem with having things? Half of things is actually pretty easy, and it's not overly complicated in the end, because the judges look at it and say, okay, you still score the tournament normally. You still go, okay, here's my tournament. I have 9 people in this tournament, or 10 people, so you have to do some rounding. Okay, well, the first 4 are going to get the top tournament points. The middle 3 are going to get the points, and the next 3 are. So it's just a matter of fractions. We all know fractions. We just all hate them.
Very good. All right. We've said a lot of things here, guys. And to be fair, the Married with Heroclix debate is not going to solve this problem for all time. And it's interesting that they're going to try it out at Gen Con and really see how this works in practice. So it's not just a matter of arguing about it in principle. But there is much to be said in principle. We have 15 seconds for your closing argument. Jay, if you want to leave the audience with anything about why they should be on Team Solomon anti new scoring rules concept, what would you say to all those fans of yours out there about why this is a dangerous thing and we got to be real wary about it? 15 seconds. Go ahead.
To jump off of a point of Jason's, the problem with the game right now isn't necessarily the figures themselves, it's the overall game. Similar to this, if we make the figures balanced, the system itself won't matter because the game will be balanced.
Well put. Worthy of Shakespeare. Over to another lesser-known Elizabethan playwright, Jason Collins, for the last 15 seconds. Why do you think that we should give these rules a shot? Go.
Look, we need to change the system somehow, and this system promotes both a balance of attack and defense. We need to do both, and it's good to check into both. So let's not strictly play defensive teams or attack teams. Let's go for both and see how it goes. And it's worth a try for something new.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's real cool. And again, we'll let the audience decide, and we'll let the experiences decide. I think it's really cool, like I said, that they're going to try it out, because it would be one thing for them to just say, here's our new system, and then everybody would complain. Or they're going to say, we're thinking about this system. What do you guys think? And then force everybody to just speak in theory or to run their own events and give highly anecdotal evidence from that. Let's try it out. Let's see what happens. Gen Con is a good opportunity for that, since it'll probably be a large enough tournament to produce some interesting results, and it should draw out some players, and give them an opportunity to just sort of stretch their legs and see what happens. I think it's cool. Thanks, guys.
Now, like Tom said at the beginning of the debate, the opinions of the debaters aren't necessarily their actual opinions, and we'll see what goes. It might work, it might not. Ultimately, it's a big picture thing right now. The system's kind of gameable. Can they fix that? We'll see. But I think we said it best on Howard's team. If they want to stop the turtling, just keep the system and let's have some people kill the turtles. Because the turtle teams that win with a 45-point win, after they lose, where do they sit in the standings? It's a question to ask in the current system. Anyway, I kind of wanted to add that in there. We didn't have time to mention it in the debate. Overall, WizKids is trying something new. It's about time. Let's hope they do it. And what I would ultimately hope for out of it is a win system that simplifies it for the players, so that all I have to turn to my judge and say is, I killed this much and I had this much surviving, and then the points are figured out after there. I think that would be the ideal system if they want to implement this for the tournaments, because we're all using the win right now. I use it on my phone, for the love of goodness, when I'm running a tournament. It's actually kind of convenient. So, okay, I've done it. I've yammered past the debate. And we kind of want to, I guess it's time to kind of start wrapping it up. And when I say wrap it up, I mean we're probably going to have an hour of this particular portion, because you guys have the best questions. Let me tell you, it's fan question time. If you're watching live in the chat, big capital letters in front of it. Question. If you've already asked a question on Facebook, we noticed it. We get the ping on that. But if you put capital letters question in the live chat, it'll be easier for me to scroll through, because the chat's quite active. And see if you can poke the guy over there, the Starting Over podcast. That's Dark Logos, Mr. Edward Sheldon. Poke at him while you're there. Chat's a lot cleaner for sure. They'll tell you that I had to deal with when I had Howard Brock on live. We had a troll enter who apparently is not a Saints fan. I went to New Orleans and I grabbed a team hat. It's something I do. When I went to Atlanta, I grabbed an Atlanta Falcons hat. So that actually has a double, Atlanta Hawks, sorry, the basketball team. And that has a double meaning, because I share a name with the center who also came out of the closet, first NBA player or first major sports player to come out of the closet. So anyway, cool. That said, let's go to the fan chat or fan questions and start on Facebook. And from the get-go, our founding Edward Sheldon wanted to remind us that he is not the Pillsbury Doughboy. He is. Don't let him tell you otherwise. He's adorable. Speaking of, and I'm going to mention our Patreon, patreon.com/marriedwithclicks, because the man whose question I'm about to answer, or ask rather, is the first and longest running patron of the Patreon. That's Mr. Michael Fedor. And he's got two questions here. The first one, hey guys, do you all hope you all had a terrific holiday weekend? That is right. It is Canada Day weekend. It's 150 years of Canada Day.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
And he wanted to ask us, are we excited for the new set and to score it between a 1 and 5? In comparison to what, after having seen What If, I was at a 5 on What If. I'm about a 7.5 right now out of 5 on Elseworlds, having seen what I've seen, and in comparison to What If, for sure, I'm a high on Elseworlds. Tom?
Feels like a 3. I'm not just comparing it to What If, mind you. I just think, on as a general scale, DC sets tend to hurt a little bit for me because I'm not as big of a DC fan. So my excitement is more coming from pieces that are potentially playable for fun and meta-type games as opposed to just characters I like finally getting their due. And I think that there's some good potential in there, but there's not anything that just blows me away with excitement. So 3's not bad. Three's not. So I'm kind of assuming that there are equal ones at every one on the level. So It's very middle of the road for me. It's certainly higher than some of the other sets we've had.
2.5 is the exact middle, and 3 is more than that. Therefore, it is a more positive.
Yeah, it's the high side of middle for sure. I'm not being negative, but I am being realistic.
Jay?
I guess I'll say solid 5 out of 7. Perfect 5 out of 7.
Boy, this scale got all messed up somewhere.
The internet has permuted our show. Tom, one day I will show you pictures of the joke that he's referencing.
Oh, okay, great.
Although it comes with a bit of a caveat. I mean, this is a competitive show, but I feel like this set is more relevant as far as casual play goes. There is still competitive stuff here, but I think overall it leans than a competitive set more than others. But I'm still very excited about it.
Yeah. All right. And the next question from Mr. Fedor. If there is time and short supply of guest questions, can you answer this one? Is Basketball Superman, Dale Suderman, an actual playable piece? How can they take it seriously on a battlefield? Is it more of just a collector piece? It's about a 50-50. I mean, he's got precision strike with 1 damage and hypersonic, so he's kind of starts as a harassment piece, but then becomes chargy and it's a goofy piece. I wouldn't expect to see him in competitive play, but darn is he fun looking. Tom?
I feel like I don't think he's a joke. I think he's playable. He's not great, but I mean, James just made the point that this set leans more towards casual, and in casual, I can see myself playing him.
Jay?
Yeah, I don't really see him being competitive. Like other figures, there's just kind of inherently a problem when a figure is not good and then gets its good from a stop click, because that puts your opponent in the position to be able to decide when that figure activates, essentially.
Right.
So I don't think he costs too much to take that into account, and he costs too much considering that he's basically 0 offense until that stop click. I don't feel like he's, I guess, undercosted enough. I think he's appropriately costed and not undercosted enough to be competitive because of that.
Right.
Okay. All right. Next up, speaking of the man with the stamp.
Woo!
The stamp's under my iPad. Ah! Bam! Heroclix stamp, courtesy of Mr. Christakis. It's an official episode, guys. Put a stamp on it. One of these days, I'm going to put the ink on it, and Amber's got a drawing over my desk that I keep stamping. I'm going to accidentally actually stamp it. Anyway, Christakis starts off. Awesome unboxings this week. Thank you all for the... Thanks for all you do for the community. Saw a preview of something you guys are going to really dig, but I can't say yet.
Aha, cool.
Aha! For question time, Elseworlds Green Lantern that has running shot pulse wave off the ID call-in seems like an automatic add in most teams with the points for that ID. Any other good ID call-ins anyone else has seen based off this Elseworlds set? Yeah, that's definitely a call-in.
That was the first one that comes to my mind.
I have to burst some people's bubbles.
What?
Because are we talking about the one that has the tokens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't work as an ID card call-in. He says at the beginning of the game. When you pop him, I mean, you can pop him off, but he would have no battery tokens, so he would not be able to make any attacks at all.
That doesn't sound right.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, because he says at the beginning of the game, not
He doesn't begin the game.
But does it say once they're all removed? Because if they never get removed,
when there are no battery tokens on this card. So,
Way to go, WizKids. You screwed it up again. The one
as
chance.
it is,
You know what? I want to go back to the beginning of the episode. I'm going to take back everything I said. They're about to introduce some Pulse Wave. Guess what? You screwed up. But he's not a bad 60-point character.
No,
He's not awful.
But he's not a good ID calling, apparently. Ugh,
No, that is kind of crappy.
that's pretty terrible.
There are a few flashes that are still good for their points. I mean, one of the best things about the Wally West, not Wally West, sorry, about Jay Garrick, is the fact that he's so cheap for a nice little piece that can go out, do a little bit of damage, and disappear. He's a good call-in option for your low-point guys. We're getting a few more flashes that fall into that category, a little bit more costly, but a little bit more effective. Or in the case of one of them, isn't he like the same number of points, but he has a 3 damage instead of 2, if memory serves? Or he's 45.
There's a 45, 60, and 110.
Yeah, so at 45 points, he's a little bit better than your 35 point. I'll keep blanking on the name. Is Jay? What am I getting? Jay Garrick, right?
Barry Allen.
Barry Allen's the one we're getting. I'm saying that
we
for
have the
Joker's
35
Wild,
one from before.
right? So that one has been good for me for calling in with my 35, 40 point characters. For my 45, 50 point characters, we can call in Barry, and he's playable. I also like for 70 points that Wonder Woman. Or at least the Diana Prince Justice Rider with running shot 4 damage is certainly not a bad thing, and she's got the high noon trait. So if you call her out and use her at the right time, there's potential there.
All right. For my actual answer, regardless of Collins, I'm bringing Shifting Focus back, baby.
Oh, I'm excited for that. That has nothing to do with Collins, but I agree.
Superman, even as a call-in, he's great.
Yeah.
The ability to move, quake. And I think he gets leadership on those first clicks, so I get an extra action. I'm not worried about the power action I took to bring him in.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
I'm all in. Plus precision strike quake. Ah, man, the new rules aren't going to work with it, but it's so nice right now. Jay?
I think the absolute best call we've seen from the set so far is the Uncommon Flash. Like, he's game-changing as an ID card call-in.
Tell us why.
But because he has a once per game trait where he says a friendly character isn't hit by a range attack, and then he gets some negatives, which is okay because he's a call-in. Mm-hmm. So he just says, okay, once per game, that attack misses. Okay, bye. Which is just really, really good, especially because you can theoretically position it so that it happens, and he simultaneously pops off the map, so it's not even like you're positioning him to then be hit and killed. My personal favorite is probably the super rare Diana Prince, because of her I will perplex nerf, her close combat action or support for versatility, and then the combination of support and then her inspiration giving charge. So you heal someone up, they're healthier, better stats, and then they get charge off the inspiration if they are needing it.
Cool.
All right. Next up, Chris Urbanic. How do you guys feel about the new tournament rules? WizKids is testing the way I see it. You can't score one figure run and turtle. I think we actually covered enough of this.
Yeah, I think we did that.
So I hope you enjoyed the debate, Chris. Next up, Rich Allen. Hey guys, I won Dormammu last week, and I was wondering at what point game is the minimum you consider playing him at his full 350 point dial? I start at 600 for myself personally. For the 350 point dial. As for the 35 point dial, let me tell you, if these new rules, I want to know how ID cards start to work on the new rules. That's what my really big concern, because it's like a power action at the beginning of the turn, but are they still going to keep with that? I don't know. Where was I going with this? But yeah, as far as a 350 point colossal, I'd start at 600 myself, just to let some more things in on the team for that. Tom, your thoughts?
Well, to be fair, if you're playing anything above 300, then you're probably playing for fun. So frankly, anything was fine. Like I agree with Jason. I agree with Jason that I guess optimally speaking, sure, 600 is as good a number as any. But to be fair, it's a fun game. If you're playing anything for 350 or higher, go ahead and have some fun with it.
Yeah. Jay?
We definitely want enough points left over to have a secondary attacker, because his trait is one hell of a double-edged sword. The Dealmaker trait, where he can't be prob, but he rolls 3 dice. Like, if you roll 3 1s, your main attacker is missing, so you definitely want some secondary attackers there.
Do I know anybody who's very capable of rolling 3 1s? I'm trying to remember that guy.
Yeah, I've seen like the Civil War Punisher get played and still miss with 3 dice. So
Oh yeah.
with the can't be re-rolled part of that, make sure you have other attackers there.
I think that. No, go ahead.
Hmm?
Go on,
I was
Jim.
just gonna say that's basically it. Just don't put all your eggs in one basket with this guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you can play. You can build around him if you have like a 500 or 600 point team.
Now that go ahead.
I was just going to say that back when Faust came out, like the one that Team Majestics designed, when he came out, I seem to recall doing some kind of math on just how much the 3 die rather than 2 actually curves your outcome. We know that 2 die, the average outcome settles around 7. I seem to recall that with 3 dice, it settles around, a little over 8 or so. It's not a huge shift, so absolutely, you can still miss.
Yeah, it's only. I think you get 1 extra point on the probability table, which is a long way when you consider that a lot of the times I won't even consider making an attack until I'm sitting at a 7, or if I'm looking at something higher than a 7, I need tons of prob around the corner.
Yeah.
Well, for 350 points, you're starting at 13 attack, so you're already pretty high. You can. He has the mystical keyword. You're going to get some perplexity. If you up into a 14, you should be hitting with anything but triple ones. So.
Yeah, 50 points at a 400 point, and Rock does run a 400 point format. Is it a 400 limited though? Because if it's 400 limited, I'm talking out the rear end of me.
There has been 400 golden or 400 rock age.
Mm-hmm. He might be a consideration because you can do a lot with 50 points nowadays. You can get 2 perplexers at 15 points with the Betty Brants, and they can eventually give support.
You can also make any ranged attack attempted to be made against your character attack somebody else and modify their damage down so they're guaranteed to miss. Then you got stop clicks, and I hate Bizarro Green Arrow. Sorry, what are you talking
about? Bizarro Green Arrow does hate Hawkeye, though.
True.
And Nathaniel has jumped in the chat and does remind me that the 400-point format is limited, so therefore, oh well.
There you go.
All right, well, I'm done talking about that then.
Butthole talk.
Yeah, but I still sit at I generally something at that point value. I don't start even considering it until 600, but I have to play a minimum of like 5 or 7 characters somewhere in me. So, all right. Now we move into the chat. So if you guys are watching right now live in the chat, put in the big question or big capital letters question so I can catch it. Nathaniel White asks, if I call in a high noon character and then make them disappear, does that mean the last hit character with them can't make a ranged attack period? I mean, the trait's off the board. Doesn't that mean that they don't have that power anymore?
Yeah, unless it's said, unless this power is lost or whatever. Yeah. And if they're off the board, their trait's no longer in effect.
Yeah, I'm just reading up on it now. It just says until your next turn. So yeah, if they go away, it's gone.
Dark Logos is in the chat. He wanted to remind me that player agency is overpowered. That's true. We are a smart bunch, I guess, here in the game of Heroclix. And there's a couple updates, like Rabbit Medic has said people were losing in the grinder, then coming over to us to buy one of the tanks because it was just crushing everything.
Yep.
I wanted to know who you are, Rabbit Medic, because it would be nice to meet you.
The 200 and 292 point meta is real.
Yeah. Okay. But I'm just reading comments. It seems like there's a lot of comments. Active chat. This is why I get you guys to put in capital letters question, because I'm starting to read this and I really got to stop doing that. All right.
Has anyone actually responded to the which boosters should Jay play?
I don't know, guys.
One person.
What we got one. Nathaniel White said Avengers and Defenders War and What If.
Huh.
For clarity, my thinking was that a minimum of 1 booster Deadpool would be really good. Because there's a lot of prob in that set, and you're going to get either your supporting character or your primary attacker. I was thinking you could have really good synergy with Uncanny X-Men, because all the X-Men there. And all of the good, because like X-Men, I think, was the first set to start with the whole 50-point character thing, and there's so many good ones there. I don't know, though.
All right.
A lot of decision-making.
Next up. There is a demand for Tom's charts. And I also responded in the chat saying they might become someone else's charts soon.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have been continuing working, but it seems silly to be like, hey, guys, here's the Deadpool chart, because, like, it's been so long. So what I'm doing instead is basically working, because when I, just to peek behind the curtain for a second, the way the charts work, I just go through a set and transcribe all the values on every click into a master spreadsheet, as well as what powers are associated with that, and then just mark it off if there's a special power or none, and team abilities and so forth. So it comes a master document of all the background numbers, and then I just make charts from it. So rather than keep doing that for so many backlogged sets, what I'd rather do is just try to do just the background info gathering, so I can take create a more holistic, here's the modern age right now sort of chart, and then try to jump back into individual sets as we move forward from there. So that's where I'm at with it, because otherwise it did seem silly to be like, here's the chart for Deadpool, even though it's been out forever. And here's the chart for it, so that I'm always behind the times. I thought we better just create kind of a master chart for the current modern age, including all the little sundry stuff that's come out, the other monthly stuff, and the micro, like the gravity feeds and the micro sets. So that's what I'm working on, in case anyone's wondering.
There you go, guys. It's on the way, but it's going to be bigger.
Yeah, it has to be bigger. It has to be finessed a little bit, because as it is, it would just be lame and behind the times.
Yeah. All right. I saw. Oh yeah. Luke Scheffenacker asks. I hope I said that right. By the way, is the win going to calculate the points for us? If they use the system, they got to have it somehow.
Yeah. I suspect that they could do that, right? It's just programming. It can't be that hard.
All right. But he does go on to say, do you think Heroclix will change big with Harley, Thor, and X-Men and X-Force and Elseworlds also with the with the new scoring, will Faust not be as good? I mean, if he's retired, he's terrible. I can hold up my hope.
Keeping in mind that, like, Faust teams aren't exclusively turtle teams. In a lot of cases, Faust teams just take the game away from you, so that there's nothing you can do while you're getting slapped around. Winning still gets you a minimum of 2 out of 3 points. So when I was saying earlier that, hypothetically, you could win all your games and not win the tournament, that's true, but winning all your games certainly helps, because it guarantees you're at least in the middle, if not in the highest bracket. So Faust teams aren't purely teams about turtling. There are some applications that are turtle friendly, but look at teams like Matt Grikunos, who came in second place at Worlds this year. He wiped out a lot of teams en route. Like He wasn't. It wasn't like every single game he played was a squeaker. So you can still get the points on a Faust team. It might help a little bit, but not enough.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Jay?
Not really.
All right, cool. Dark Logos also wants us to suggest. He suggested a new name, which is the Meta Math. The Meta Math Lab.
Ooh, that sounds about right.
That's what I was going for with this. Maybe. Thanks. By the way, copyrighted already, so you can't claim it. All right. Here we go. Tego Pinto de Luz. What do you think what do you think the special what do you think this invisible jet's going to do, guys? I don't know. What do you think the invisible jet's going to do?
Oh.
Be hard to hit, carry people, and I mean the invisible jet's not. I swear to God, if it's another Quinjet, I'm going to throw something out the window.
Yeah, that would be shitty.
I mean, ultimately, I have no idea what it's going to do, but I'm almost guaranteeing it's going to be difficult to hit at range, and it's going to be very supporty and carry. I hope that's like a set of words that we all kind of what I'm trying to get at. So it's not going to be, super strong shooty thing, because that's not what the invisible jet does. It's going to be a support type thing that carries people, gets them in there, etc. Oh, apparently the invisible jet has a special terrain dial. I don't know. You know more than I do, Diego. All right, speculation's over. All right. Dark Logos wants to know, do we think that the ring will be watch listed? I don't think so. If the new tournament rules are any indication of what I think they're going for right now, no. Because it sounds like they're aiming for a specific, be ready for everything sort of situation. But sorry, my kid just came into the room, just talking to Amber. So the boxing ring forces close combat. That means you can't turn around and go, well, I built a range team, now I'm going to lose. Should have been ready for it, right? And that's going to be, I think, their reaction to it. I don't know. Tom, what do you think?
I don't think it will be, but the reason I don't think it will be is that I think that we're going to see some more special terrain kind of rushed through in the semi-near future, and that if we do, then there'll be other options, and they'll very quickly try to do the resource thing where you get enough different options in the market that as long as they're all kind of similarly powerful, it'll definitely change the game, no question about that, but it won't be a specific thing that changes the game so much like the Gauntlet in the past. The intensity of this one thing will eventually become washed away by just a whole new era of a new thing. That would be my guess. That's pulling that right out of my backside, but that's my guess.
All right. Jay?
I'm not sure how many of them we're going to get, just given how often does WizKids release stuff in boxes that size outside of cons. They make Colossus all the time, but you don't see that sort of shape of thing released outside of as a purchasable at the place. I don't know. That's also more speculation because we never had this kind of thing before. I think they're already trying to balance it out. I can think of 2 characters off the top of my head that have game effects that say your stats can't be negatively modified. We also have had characters that do that, we've had the World's Finest and Joker Lex. So maybe we'll just get more characters or effects that can help negate. Too. That's major. So it seems like they're already trying to make stuff that'll balance out the negatives of that, so it's easier to play against. So I don't necessarily know if it's going to be needed to be nerfed.
All right. So a resounding no, it sounds like we're saying.
Well, yeah. For a pure guess world, yeah.
And Jay doesn't seem to like Diego's answer as far as his World's Finest booster. Diego's also trying to remind me that hey, they did say that there's a special terrain thing on it. Look, what does the invisible jet do that makes terrain? How can I speculate without that kind of knowledge?
Well,
this sounds made up.
You accidentally run into it like the cloaked bird of prey in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home.
We do. Well, the last one had barrier because of the force field thing.
Cool. It's got shields. I mean, okay. I don't know. I don't know how a special terrain dial is going to function with it at all. I can't speculate on that.
Yeah. The solicit says there's a brand new terrain dial. That's an entirely new thing. We can't speculate on something we've never seen before.
Or again, what is the invisible jet do that suggests it creates terrain? It flies, and we see Wonder Woman floating in it. That's what it is, as far as I've seen in the comics, right?
Well, yeah, I guess.
So, all right, or maybe they've misunderstood what stealth is, and they think that a wall gets created in front of it. Look, I'm camouflaged. There's a wall in front of me. Camouflage, guys.
I'm sure they'll come up with something really dumb, and we'll all complain about it.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Aw, let's not be negative. Actually, I'm sure they'll come up with something cool, and
I'm sure they'll come up with a really great idea that might not be that will be executed in a way that allows us to exploit it.
That's the likeliest thing you've said all day.
Yeah,
I'm just looking forward to it having the JSA keyword, which automatically means it's going to be meta. That's going to be fun.
I have to ask, guys, we talked about what we think is going to be competitive enough in Elseworlds at this point?
Yeah.
Or do you guys have any other thoughts on that? Because I know I did a whole episode on it, so.
Yeah, I would say I've watched the episode.
Yeah, I do my figure-by-figure review of what we opened in the stuff. That gives you kind of a good idea of what I think for sure. I'm watching that 70-point Superman as an ID column, by the way. I'm watching for that because that's a lot of stats for 70 points, and I don't care if it doesn't kill anything or if it takes damage and I call it in, right? Yeah. Whatever. I murdered your face with a 70-point character. 6 damage because I'm already thinking that just yeah. Anyway, Nathaniel White. Is it time for the rise of the no team bases? Stop. We get this question every other month.
What is it?
It's just like he says, is it time for the rise of the team base again? No. Even Amber.
No.
Jay?
No, thank you.
Okay, cool. I can keep him on the show. I'm sitting there on the kick from chat button. It's like, you answer this right. No, but seriously, like, this is a team building game. Come on. All right. If you honestly, if you want to limit to one thing, then be a really big character. I'm okay with that idea. On Dark Side, I don't need help. Okay, cool, right? But it's like, here's a base with the X-Men. Get out of here.
It's kind of the opposite, the opposite principle to Heroclix in the first place, anyway. Yeah. It's like here's a game about strategically deploying your characters or making them stand in a clump.
Here's all of them again. Well, I mean, that's how we kind of play the game anyway. You know, if you ever notice, if you play a game and your team gets split up, it's divide and conquer works in this game, let me tell you. And that's one of the problems with that tank, is that tank works against the commonly known strategy of the game is if I get too far from my stuff, I'm going to eat it, right? So, all right. Luke Scheffenacker, why is the meta so small, and what are some of the clicks in there? Well, I think at this point, me and Jay went over the math for the previous meta. At the end of it. And at the end of it, we had 10% saturation of all the figures in the game that existed in Modern. And that was bumped up by one set that had some influx of numbers that accounted for extra on top of that, because there was a bunch of, like, a stack of maybe 20 characters that did the same. I'm exaggerating, but it's like a stack of a certain percentage of that set. Made up to like 25% of that set was good, but it was all 25% of those things were doing the same thing, right? So, I mean, ultimately, we, on average, see about 10% competitive play because of what's strong. But we're at the smallest point of the meta right now, and we're actually probably looking at about a 5% in the smallest version of the meta that we're going to have. And part of that is a design curbing that we've seen kind of us.
Right.
But as figures get made, hopefully people do have a good memory and start recomboing things from the past, right? So, like, when figures start to come out, we hope, one of the hopes and the expectations is we go back in time and go, that might actually make this work now, right? Just one of those things I kind of see. Tom, your thoughts on the matter?
Sorry, what was the question?
Why is the meta so small? And I mean, I don't want to go over some of the clicks in the meta, but why is the meta so small in general? I think is what the general question.
I think we've already kind of talked a fair amount when we went at length on Goblin King and Jakeem on how they're just disproportionately good as compared to the rest of the field. I'm not saying that the meta is just them, but that's an indication of the larger theme of things, which is that we've seen a bit of a depowering of Heroclix in conjunction with a depointing, you might say. So it's not necessarily that things are unbalanced. The balance is just shifting. But the best stuff now is a little bit better as compared to some of the other stuff, I think. And that's we've also just had a big retirement and loss of a lot of things. And frankly, our resource options and versatility have gone down significantly, which is often a good way of making pieces shine that otherwise couldn't shine on their own, attach them to something really powerful. We did see a lot of variety within the characters being used during the heyday of the resource meta, even if there were negatives in the resource meta. We're still kind of living it, but it's much reduced. So I think that those are all contributing factors, and the way against it largely is the design initiative.
Yep. Jay?
I don't think I have anything to add here.
Okay. And Luke does go on to ask, why is WizKids changing stuff? Just keep the game the same way it is. Ultimately, certain things do need to change. Some things are they're kind of overreaching on. I personally think, despite what I said in the debate, that the tournament thing was an overreach too soon right now. That said, it's okay to do some changing. The rules needed an overhaul. Let's not kid ourselves. The rules needed a massive overhaul. And like anything that's in the 15 years of the game, I think the only actual new thing that got added to the game, other than some colored powers, etc., was like the power action at one point. Everything else kind of got added, tacked on, but I wouldn't say is a massive change. It's more of an addition to. And, you know, things got reworded over time, but not necessarily to be easy, more or less to be useful and used. And right now it's a time where it's like, you know, as the game stands, the game is not new user-friendly. And they kind of need to get to a point where we can say, hey, a new user of the – I'm sorry, such a video game guy. A new player has showed up. Let's teach them the game, and let's be able to do it in a single sitting. And that's kind of what I think they need to be able to do right now. And that's why I think the big change in rules is happening. As far as the tournament rules are changing, somebody observed something at Worlds that I didn't catch, and they think they need to overhaul the system. Tom, your thoughts?
Well, they've already, as we've seen, begun overhauling their dial design principles. We've seen that over the course of the last several sets. We've seen the rules changing, and now the tournament rules are in question. There seems to be a lot of pressure on the team to keep the game relevant moving forward, and to ensure that it has the ability to stay profitable and to grow. And I think the initiative likely given unto them is listen to what people have to say and show that we want to make changes to invest in the future of the game. Whether that's really true or not, we'll see. But that's what I think.
Yeah. Jay?
Yeah, there's definitely times when stuff needs to be changed because of how the game is going. Like, for the new rules, they specifically explained that they didn't intend Sidestep to work with Poison as it did. Right. So they changed it. When you make new stuff, it changes how older stuff works. And those kind of interactions are why you need to, you know, when ID cards were first invented, did the designer think, oh, I'll be able to do a free TK to get 8 squares before I do it? Not necessarily.
I hope so.
So they're fixing it.
Trick.
Which is a good one.
All right.
Don't you dare.
That's correct. My favorite ever. Ever changing.
All right, guys. I want to throw a shout out to our sponsors over at hcrealms.com as we're kind of wrapping up the show here. HC Realms is the one-stop source for all things Heroclix related. Check them out. It's really the great place where the conversation is happening. They got a forum section where people are talking, the unit section to track your collection, build your teams, etc. I mean, it's such a look. I've already started with a Doctor Strange for some reason. Oh, look, Elijah Snow's in there somewhere. Maybe if I go to What If, oh, look at that. I can add an Elijah Snow to my team. That's going to make me a terrible. That's What If. Elseworlds is a set where he is. Oh, look at that. I can now add a 70-point Elijah Snow and lose all of my friends. But also, if you're looking for your rock events, check out the rock section. Speaking of which, States and Provincials is just around the corner, guys, and it's happening on the weekends of July 28th, 29th, and the weekend of August 5th and 6th. And the prize breakdown is right here at the Rock, under the Rock tab on the HC Realms. HC Realms is one of the organizers of it, of course. And these are all the states and locations and provinces that have it. Oh, look at that. Ontario's running one, guys. Did you know that? Oh.
Hey, did you know that Quebec's is not the same weekend? So you can go to both. I know I'm going to.
Hey, Tom, might need a red.
Oh, good. I have 2 cards right now. Long story.
Awesome. Yeah, so check it out at the Comic Warehouse in Brampton and the weekend before in Quebec at Geekitude in Montreal. Of course, if you're north or south of the border, as a lot of our fans are, check out your state and store and see where they're playing later. They give them Eternal Games down in Michigan on Saturday, August 5th, the same weekend as us, you jerks.
Okay, they won't come up to provincials then.
Exactly.
Don't want Adam Cole to take all of our prizes.
Oh no, I'll probably hit him in the head. I'm judging this time around, so I can't dethrone him for you guys. But yeah, HC Realms. Also, while you're there, check out the shop section. And once you're done filling out your card, put in the coupon code MARRIED for 10% off of your purchase. A little bit of a kickback comes back to the channel as well. Also, check out majesticccg.com/apex-insiders, the source of load. The source of all great minds in the HeroClix game. Look at that. Diego, who's in our chat right now, has an episode on the Goblin King. We also have an episode on the Samantha Wilson Captain America. Oh, look, the team list from the U.S. Nationals as well. Oh, this is PJ Bolin talking about his team, because sometimes the champs and the good people, the people who are good at this game, put their teams up there and tell you ahead of time. Because you can build against them, but if you're not built for the rest of the field, you're in trouble. When I placed third in Canada, I did manage to put my team up here. So
hey, PJ Boland placed second in the U.S. Nationals with a team that he said, "Hey, everybody, come at me," and they did, and they lost. Except for
there is something to this effect. Also, for $3 a month, you get access to all of this stuff on this. Otherwise, you get access to some of their tournament updates, and their tournament updates are some of the fastest as far as the Rock is concerned. They have a spy network that makes my spy network look terrible. Actually, my spy network is terrible, and you guys are all fired. The assassins are on their way. So just shoot the cyanide down. Also, check us out at patreon.com/Heroclix if you want to directly sponsor us. Our Patreon Hangout is actually looking. We're going to do it next or this Friday, but I might have to push. It's going to be July 14th. I remember saying that. Friday, July 14th. I should have a little bit of freedom from work on that one. But we'll check that out again. Friday, July 14th. If you want to get in on the Patreon Hangout, check us out at patreon.com/Heroclix. You, at any patron value, you can get access to that. We're also putting in our order this week for the May and June action tokens for those of you who are at the $10 range. So look forward to that in the mail, and at least by the end of the month. It does take some time to get them to us from who we order them from. That's Big Billy Games. So they're really cool and awesome for doing that. Tom, it was great to have you back this week.
Happy to be here.
Awesome episode. And it's been a heck of a news-filled week, my guy. My goodness, we have a lot to talk about this week. But is it good to feel good to have a lot to talk about? Yeah. And, having lots to talk about means we can get ready with our teams and get some practice in. Because, guys, practice
makes
your
team
better.
I had one set up, too, and it wasn't as good. Oh, there we go. It's high noon all the time. All right, guys. Have a good night. Thanks, guys, for joining us live. Thanks for watching in the archives. Good clicks.